What does it mean to be a United States citizen? For those born here, it is a gift that can often be taken for granted. For those seeking U.S. citizenship, it is a dream, the American dream. Stay with us as we talk about the dream and the reality of service as a pathway to citizenship. Thanks for tuning in to Veterans Voices. I'm Nathan Johnson. Tonight, we will be talking about service as a pathway to citizenship. If you want to be a part of the conversation, call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us veteransvoices@ContraCostaTV.org. To begin our panel, I want to welcome veterans D. James, Alex Murillo, and Casey Warner to the show, along with translator for the U.S. Forces, Najman Haikal. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Nathan.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
So most of our audience might recognize Dee as previously a part of our production team. Welcome back, Dee, and thank you everyone else for joining us tonight. This is a phenomenal topic that we're going to talk about, pathway to citizenship through military service, and each one of you has a very unique story. We'll get into all that full story, but real briefly, just quickly, share with us a little bit about your military service. What branch and where you served would be helpful. Dee, let's start with you since everyone's familiar with you.
Hi, Nathan. Thank you guys for having me. I'm an Army veteran, served in Iraq.
Thanks, Dee. And let's move to Alex. Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, bro. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. My name is Alex Murillo. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran from Phoenix, Arizona. I served from 96 to 2000.
Thanks, Alex. And Casey, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Casey, and I served in the Navy 4.5 years active duty from 1968 to 1973. And then joined the reserves, did 24 years, so 28 years total service with the United States Navy.
Thank you so much, Casey. And Najman, you have a very unique perspective tonight because you actually served in Afghanistan as a translator working alongside U.S. forces. Tell us real briefly a little bit more about that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Yes, I'm Najman Haikal, originally from Afghanistan, and I started working with the U.S. forces right after 9/11 happened, and I was just a young boy, age of 20.
Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. This topic has hit the headlines recently over the past couple of years, but I first became aware of the topic of U.S. citizenship for our veterans years ago when I worked at the Vet Center and had met a Marine who had served in Iraq and was not able to get his U.S. citizenship, or at least was having a challenge in getting his U.S. citizenship. And this is a story, or at least a challenge that all of you have faced in one way or another. I'll open it up to everyone. Help our audience understand the significance of this issue. For veterans who serve in the military, whether you serve in combat or not, what is the challenge and what is the opportunity to seek your citizenship as a veteran?
Nathan, I can go ahead and take the topic as a start. I joined the Army in 2001, and one of the reasons why I joined is one was pathway to citizenship, and the second was my college tuition. I served in 2001, and in 2003, I was deployed to Iraq for 12 months. Because of the training and current deployment, I actually missed my citizenship ceremony appointment 3 times throughout my entire 5 years because of deployments. I served twice in Iraq, and I kept missing my appointment because of the deployments and the training to gear up for deployment. So I exited the military in 2006, And I was not a U.S. citizen. I was never able to complete my citizenship process. And actually, my resident card, my green card, for some people know it as, it was actually expired. So I was basically illegally in the United States right after serving in the military and right after coming back from Iraq. So while my military service was a pathway to citizenship, I was not able to accomplish it because the mission took priority, as it usually does.
And Dee, let's just stick with you for just a second. Help our audience understand, and I don't have a full understanding of what is the process to obtain citizenship. Is it the same for a military service member, or is it different?
So it is the same. However, it is for those who have served. There was a law that was established for those who deployed after 9/11. The process was expedited and some of the fees were waived, but we still had to complete the application through Department of Homeland Defense. And we still had to file fingerprints, and we actually have to take the test that everybody has to take before becoming a citizen. So it is the same, but we did get some expedited methods because of our deployment and service in the military.
Thank you, Dee. Alex, I want to toss to you. Dee just described deploying multiple times and missing certain parts of the process of becoming a citizen. Before we move on to Casey, Alex, tell us a little bit about how this pathway to citizenship was affected by your military service.
Well, it's crazy because hearing Dee talk about what happened to her, and it's like that because when you're active duty, you're on mission. They send you here, there, and everywhere, and you really don't have a chance to do anything else but be a soldier. You know, my parents, when I was in Israel, and I was talking to my dad, and my dad said, "Son, you know, your mom and I are going to do our citizenship. You know, are you going to be on the at the appointments? Or are you going to, you know?" And I was like, "Dad, I'm in the military. I'm overseas. My command, my squadron's going to take care of that." And that's what I thought, you know. But it never happened. I did leave the military without becoming a citizen, and it affected me greatly once I got in trouble about 12 years later for a nonviolent cannabis offense, and it got me deported, exiled from my country for over a decade. I am just recently, and I'm talking about just weeks back home, bro, and I'm so blessed, and my head's still spinning. I love being back home. I mean, this is a dream come true for me. But I am still in the fight. I'm in the fight to stay home. I'm in the fight to get my citizenship. And I'm still in the fight to bring the rest of my brothers and sisters back home who are exiled, that need to come back home. I'm on a humanitarian visa for a year. And during that time, I need to fight to stay here and to get my citizenship. At the very least, my LPR, my green card back, you know. So yeah, it is a struggle, and I recommend all the soldiers, all the active duty members, get your citizenship as soon as possible. It should be mandatory after boot camp, after successful graduation from boot camp. Our soldiers should be sworn in, because the oath of enlistment is almost identical to the swearing in of the citizenship oath, you know. So a lot of our guys thought that they were already citizens already. You know, we have a lot of that. Most of our guys were promised citizenship to join. So there's a lot of that. There's a whole lot of issue here that we have to rectify. There's an injustice here that has to be fixed. It's unjust and un-American to deport a U.S. soldier, you know. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for bringing some enlightenment to the issue here in regards to how this pathway to citizenship is not always an easy path to take. So let's come back to that and talk about that a little bit more. Casey, I want to jump to you because what I understand from you, sir, is that you actually became a U.S. citizen during your leave from, was it Vietnam?
Yeah, from R&R in Hawaii, I got my citizenship. My paperwork was started when I joined the Navy. As first of all, I had the green card and I was eligible for a draft. So I had a draft. I got drafted, but I was able to get into the Navy in a 6-month delay program to get my citizenship before I actually started boot camp so I could go to a nuclear power school. Because as a Japanese citizen, I'm not eligible to go become an electronics tech or go to nuclear power school. So thinking that 6 months is enough time, but it doesn't work that way. So I left for a bit. Even in San Diego, when I was stationed there before going to Vietnam, I couldn't get the government to move on it. I finally got my uncle that was a retired Navy captain. He knew who to call and who to push buttons. So after I got to Vietnam, I got a letter from him saying that the paperwork could be ready in Hawaii. And I'm thinking that, if I didn't have an uncle that had a lot of pull, I probably would not get my citizenship. So, but I got my citizenship. I was R&R in Hawaii. And of course, because citizenship didn't come through in time, I ended up in Vietnam as a brown water Navy all the way into Cambodia, from Da Nang to Cambodia. So by that time, I already had, my son was born before I even went in the Navy. And so it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this, but I'm glad to be an American citizen because for me, I was born in Nagasaki, Japan, right after the bomb. I was probably only a half-breed in the Nagasaki area, and I was not treated very well. And so for me to come to the America, and except for the first, I would say about a month or so after I got here, for most part, I was very accepted into the Bay Area. So I felt like home. So I wanted to be an American because I felt I had a wife and a son. That's an American. I needed to be an American. So.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot happened for you in that time. Your son being born, being deployed to Vietnam, and then becoming a U.S. citizen in Hawaii, which is a pretty remarkable place to probably have that ceremony or have that event take place. I want to come back to the question of how you all felt when you were able to obtain your citizenship, or Alex, in your instance, when you were able to obtain your access back to the United States. But before we jump there a little bit, Najman, you served in the military or served in a supportive role to the military. So this is a different experience that as an interpreter, you served alongside U.S. forces and actually were in Afghanistan, from what I understand, at the end of the conflict in August of last year. And how has that military service been a pathway for citizenship for you?
Oh, well, as I just mentioned, right after 9/11, I was just a young high school graduate, young man. I was in Afghanistan. I was the first when the Taliban were on the ground the first time. So I didn't expect U.S. troops in Afghanistan, but right, 9/11 happened, and I was one of few people that are able to speak English. So I joined the U.S. Army and served and helped them out. So I almost started working for them until like 2008. So almost like 7 years live in combat, day to day, almost all over the country. Citizenship was not easy for me. Actually, I didn't dream first that I would be a U.S. citizen at the beginning. However, at the end of 2006 or early 2007, there was a draft there was something passed through the Congress that those who serve for the U.S. Army and if their life is West, they can go to United States with their family. So I was one of few people that I was granted this privilege, and they came to United States. However, that was not an easy thing for me. The reason why is one, I was a local. Two, almost not all but most of my relatives turned to be enemies for me or for our family. The reason why is one, I was supporting U.S. Army. Two, like in combat, and of course coming here, that was like another negative things for those who were against it. So almost back home, like especially back to village and people who I know or grew up with, they were not friendly at all with me, and I would say until now. And then it took me 5 years actually to be U.S. citizen. When I got here, I was granted a green card. However, I have to wait for 5 years as any other regular green card holder to get my citizenship. But I was redeployed back in 2012 with the Marine Corps to Helmand, Afghanistan for a year, and that was a kind of
Wow. Well, we're lucky to have you here. Grateful that you were able to leave Afghanistan safely. I want to direct this back to everyone on the panel tonight. You know, someone who was born in the United States, I've never had the experience of becoming a citizen. I was born a citizen. But I know it's a remarkable experience, not only to have the honor to serve in the military, but then to later become a citizen, or for you, Alex, to at least have access back to the United States. What does it feel like? How can you describe that experience when you experienced it either on vacation, R&R from Vietnam, or after you left the military?
For me, I was able to be sworn in and right under the statue of King Kamehameha. So it felt like I didn't know anything about Hawaiian history, but later I found out that it was very special to be where I was, to be sworn in. And I had, you know, my uniform on, my Navy uniform on, that was a little out of date, but that was another story. But so, yeah, I was, it just felt a big relief and proud at the same time.
Yeah, fantastic, Casey. Alex, want to hear from you because we're going to have UD on the next segment if we don't have enough time. Alex, how does it feel to be back in the United States?
Yeah, bro, it is a dream come true. I mean, I can literally say that I have been dreaming about this since my exile. So, I mean, I've never had a dream come true before, and this is a dream come true for me to be back home. It's been a long fight just to get back here. Like I said, I know my fight is still in front of me. The battle continues to bring the rest of my brothers and sisters back home, and also to get my citizenship now.
Fantastic. And Naj, we have about 20 seconds. How does it feel to be a citizen, sir?
It's a privilege. It is a blessing for me. Especially, I just have a look back home that is again under control of Taliban, unfortunately. And I was, as you just mentioned, I was stuck there, like out of there. Very happy to be here and be part of this community with my family.
Well, thank you all. Our panelists will be back. We'll have them on for a third segment. But for now, when we come back, we will continue our conversation with other guests. First, we want to take a moment to honor Memorial Day with some images from Memorial Day ceremonies that took place here in Contra Costa County. Tonight, we're talking about service as a pathway to citizenship, a very important topic, and we're glad you tuned in. Do you want to be a part of this conversation? We'd love to have you. Maybe you've experienced this yourself, or you have an interest in this topic. We'd love to hear from you with your questions or your comments. call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us at veteransvoices@ContraCostaTV.org. Now I want to welcome immigration law expert Jenny Pasquarella to the show. Jenny, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. And of course, Dee is continuing on with us in segment 2 as well. So thank you both for continuing into this segment. And what we heard from our first guest is that the path to citizenship through the military is just like the path for any other citizen or person wanting to become a citizen, except maybe for service members, it could be much more complicated, as in Dee's case, deployments can interfere, and in Alex's case, that he thought that his unit was going to handle the paperwork for him. So there's some complications, there's some complexities to this pathway. It's not exactly a clear path. Some veterans, like Casey, were able to obtain that status while they're actually in. But Jenny, you deal with this every day through your efforts as a law attorney. How can you, or what kind of understanding can you give us from a legal perspective of what it takes for a service member or a veteran to become a U.S. citizen?
Yeah, so I think it's important first to start with the history, because I think history is really critical to understanding this issue and what's been going on. It is dating back to the founding of this nation that we have had non-citizens serving in our military. They have always played a critical role in our military. Statistics show that even like in the Civil War, 20% of our soldiers were actually non-citizens. And so our law also has reflected that ability for non-citizens to serve in the military. As early as the War of 1812, we had a law that said if you served during a time of war, your citizenship can be expedited and the regular requirements for citizenship could be waived, such that the idea of Congress back then was all you needed was a day of service, signing up to defend the United States during a time of war, and you could become a citizen. That has been our law since the War of 1812. But the problem has been that the law has not been implemented correctly over many, many years. And through different periods of time, there have been different problems throughout within the military that have created impediments to people obtaining the citizenship that they were promised. And so that's what we see with these cases, that folks like Dee and Alex and others who enlisted in the military under this promise that they would be given this expedited citizenship as a result of their service, found that in fact it wasn't expedited because of various hurdles that they confronted while deployed and serving.
You mentioned the law not being implemented correctly. How can we identify who's not implementing this correctly? Which agency, or is it in the process of the military's role? Is it outside of the military's hands? Where's the disconnect here in terms of this existing law not being able to serve combat veterans in their citizenship?
Well, there have been two big problems, and that have to do with two different agencies within our government now. So we have the Department of Defense, which controls everything related to military policy, of course. And then you have the Immigration Service that handles the processing of naturalization applications. There have been problems on both sides. The problem within the military has been, and historically this is true for Alex and for others who served not in recent years, but many decades ago, that they were actually told, there was a lot of misinformation. And so people were enlisted by recruiters, either giving them misinformation or their own military chain of command giving them misinformation and telling them, hey, don't worry about it. Now that you're in the military, you're a citizen. You took that oath of enlistment, which is identical to the oath of naturalization. You're a citizen, like you don't need to file an application. Of course, that was wrong. And so many people, and I've encountered, and I know Dee has as well in our work to repatriate deported veterans, we hear these stories every day of people saying, hey, when I was in the military, I was told I was a citizen. I didn't realize I wasn't a citizen until I was literally put in deportation proceedings as a veteran after, one thing happened. And I was then, subjected to the criminal legal system, got a conviction because of something that happened that was usually related to their military service. And then suddenly I'm in deportation proceedings and being kicked out of the country. If only they had told me back when I was serving that in fact I needed to file an application for citizenship, I wouldn't be here. So that's one of the problems that we've seen historically. Today, what we're seeing is something different. There may still be a lot of misinformation among recruiters and the chain of command, but the bigger problem we're seeing is institutional, in that many of the advances that were made now, 10, 15 years ago were stripped away under the Trump administration to make it more difficult for service members to process their naturalization applications while they're in the service. And DoD policies have been enacted starting in 2017 that basically say that despite what the law says, people who who enlist in the military have to have minimum service requirements. They have to serve for a minimum period of time before they can even begin the naturalization process, which is not what the law says. The law says 1 day of active duty service is all that's required. And so these are the sort of hurdles that we're now trying to address that really should not be there, because we should be acknowledging and recognizing and honoring the service of our non-citizen service members, just as we do our citizen service members. And the way that we do that is by ensuring that they get citizenship while they're in the military.
Yeah, something's coming to mind as you're sharing this, and that, in the role of the county veteran service officer and helping veterans obtain their benefits that they've earned while they served, it would be impossible for a veteran who has served honorably in the country to access those benefits if they can't live here in the United States. The VA has very limited health care service outside of the United States. A clinic in the Philippines, for example, only one regional office in the Philippines. So there is very limited benefits access for veterans who don't have citizenship and aren't able to live in the United States. Are you running into any issues in that regard? Veterans who have injuries related from their service, who can't have those injuries treated. Dee, you're shaking your head. You want to share some of your experiences?
Yeah, so I'm a member of Repatriate Our Patriots, and as a board member, we actually work with some of our deported veterans who are working to file a compensation claim. And like you said, the lack of accessibility to healthcare and doctors, you can conduct a physical that may be accepted through the VA to file a claim. It's very hard to get. To Jenny's comments earlier, when I left the military, my green card was expired, and nobody told me that basically I was in the United States illegally, that I will have to reapply for my immigration paperwork and my status. But there was no type of process or anyone that there was no checklist that checked the box to see if I was a citizen or not, and what would the implications be of me leaving the military without a citizenship. And like she mentioned, I felt that I was already a citizen. My military ID card of me was my new green card. That's what I used to come back and forth the times I went on emergency leave to Mexico. So to me, it wasn't even a thought that I was not a US citizen. Because of the trauma that I incurred while in service, me leaving the military was a survival move for me. I needed to leave. I knew that if I deployed again, I probably wasn't gonna make it back. So my citizenship and my immigration paperwork was the least concern in my mind. I just wanted to survive and move to a safe place. So right now, a lot of our veterans face those challenges of not being able to even have access to preventive care, which then leads on to more health complications that some of them end up passing away while in exile. And as crazy as it sounds, if a veteran who's deported dies in exile, they can come back to the United States and be buried at a veteran cemetery.
Well, we would hope that veterans wouldn't have to wait until they die in order to have access back to the United States. Jenny and Dee, moving forward in this conversation, for any veterans who are listening or any service members, what should they pay attention to? What questions should they be asking? What steps should they be taking in order to ensure that by the time they leave the military, they do have citizenship, and it no longer is confusing for them. They are allowed to live here free as Americans in the United States, the country that they served.
Well, I would say for service members, it's critical that they start the process and apply to naturalize. The first step is to get a certification of a N-426 form, which is the certification of honorable service. And then once they have that, they can apply. But where we see the hurdles right now is with obtaining the N-426. So if that is something that folks are encountering, they should, as soon as possible, get legal help and can reach out to the ACLU if they need assistance with that. And then for veterans, of course, the same applies. Get your citizenship. You can get it for free. As a veteran, it's free, and you're entitled to it from your military service as a lawful permanent resident. Begin that process. Don't wait, and seek out legal help if you need it. But it is something that folks can also, especially if you haven't been deported, if you're still in the United States, you should be able to do on your own.
And Jenny, just for all of our familiarity, citizenship, veteran status entitles a person to veterans benefits. Citizenship, what are some of the main benefits that citizenship would entitle them to that they wouldn't be afforded to, although they're a veteran?
Well, first and foremost, you can't be deported, right? You belong to this country. You can come in and out. You cannot be denied entry. You get to live here indefinitely, and you get all the privileges of citizenship, including the ability to vote. Citizenship also offers certain government service jobs that aren't available to non-citizens, which is also true in the military as well as other government posts. So those are the main benefits. But I think most important is to ensure that you get that piece of paper that gives you that legal right to be here forever. And if you become a citizen, also your family members can become citizens. If you have children under the age of 18, they automatically derive citizenship from you if you naturalize. So that's really an important benefit as well, particularly for people with children.
Dee, we have a minute. Do you want to add anything to that? Jenny mentioned live here, work here, vote here. What are some of the other reasons to become a U.S. citizen?
To be able to access those VA benefits that veterans have earned. Right. It is extremely hard for veterans once they've been deported to file a claim and to get medical assistance, even with the foreign medical program that the VA offers. So yes, you have earned and you have served for those benefits, and that is a great way to do that. There is veterans who are currently deported who are 100% permanent and total disabled and are getting their compensation checks, but that was after years and many hurdles of processing and paperwork.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree, and I appreciate the work that both of you do. My hope would be that veterans who served honorably in service of our U.S. military would certainly be citizens working here, living here, enjoying the opportunity to vote and the benefits that they earned. We're going to have more of this conversation, and we hope that you are listening and paying attention to this very important topic and would love to have your participation. Any of your comments, any of your questions, we'll address in the next segment. When we return, we will conclude this conversation with the entire panel and answer all of the questions you might ask. Right now, we want to honor the military career of Derrick McCarthy and this month's Shadowbox segment. This month's Shadowbox belongs to Derrick McCarthy. Derrick joined the Marines in September of 1997 and retired in October of 2019. He served at 9 different duty stations over those 22 years, never the same one twice. Derrick began in aircraft rescue and firefighting and rose to the rank of staff sergeant. He was selected to the Warrant Officer program and promoted to gunnery sergeant at the same time. He held every position in ARFF and retired as the Chief Warrant Officer 4. He is proud of the fact that he has met every president since Clinton, ate lunch with George Bush, and high-fived Obama. We honor his service. We're talking about service as a pathway to citizenship. We want to welcome you to contact us with questions or comments. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1, or email us, veteransvoices@ContraCosta TV. I want to give this last segment as an opportunity for all of our audience to ask questions or leave comments in regards to this important topic. But I want to create a little bit of an open forum here for all of our guests. What have we not covered? I want to sit here and listen patiently and quietly as those of you who have experienced this opportunity to become a citizen or have worked towards it can share a little bit more about this topic. Alex, let's come to you. You've probably got a lot more to say in regards to your journey in returning back to the United States.
Yes, well, I mean, I can't say what it feels like to be a citizen yet, but hopefully in the near future, I will. That's what I'm working towards. Thank you to the efforts of Jenny and Dee. I didn't know Dee was a Repatriate Our Patriots. They wrote letters on my behalf. It was a combined effort. Jenny from ACLU and MDEF attorneys, they were able to bring me home. So it's a group effort. And I think a lot of basic Americans, they don't realize that less than 1% of Americans will serve. Less than 1% will raise the right hand and say, I will do it. I will go. I will serve and take that oath. So we are a select group as veterans and as soldiers. And us as deported veterans, we're even a percentage of that 1% that's out in exile. So we have to pull together. What's more American than a U.S. soldier? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is something that we have to rectify. We have to bring our brothers and sisters that are in exile back home. It's it's a black eye on the military, and it's a bad mark on our country right now. But I always say this is the part in American history where America has deported its veterans. We need to get to the part in American history where America brings home our deported veterans. That's where we need to get to.
And I want to just take a minute to mention some of the things that our deported veterans are being challenged with on their countries of origin. The most of them don't even know, because some of them came to the United States when they were young, they were children. Some of them don't even speak the language of that country, but they have the majority of the veterans who are currently exiled can make probably $50 a week, and that is for living, for healthcare, for transportation, for living, and without the assistance of some type of organizations such as ACLU, who provides pro bono legal assistance to help them with their case, veterans can barely live day by day, little less even pay for counsel, for legal counsel. Some of the things, their mental health is challenged every day. They are targeted by criminal organizations in those countries, such as cartels, because of their military background. Day to day, they're experiencing, they go and do odd jobs for a few dollars a day just to pay for the meal of that night. So just to bring a picture to you of what our veterans are facing being in exile, and I can't tell you here, like Alex was one of them, and the work he has done has been selfless, for himself and others. But yeah.
Well, thank you, Alex and Dee. And Casey, you mentioned how much it helps to have someone else's support and advocacy in your role of becoming a citizen. And we have a question from our viewer here. The question is, can a local U.S. congressman or senator, I think in this instance, assist a service member or a veteran to get citizenship? So is there a role that our federal elected officials have in helping individuals become citizens? Jenny, maybe this is a question for you or Dee.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We see it in almost every case we work on, where the member of Congress for the place where in the case of the deported veterans, the last place where they resided, they've been instrumental in helping with the case, whether it's the citizenship or other parts of the immigration case. But yeah, we often work with members of Congress to help move the process along and ensure a favorable outcome.
What can we do as a citizen to help you? Because I remember reading that or seeing that, and I'm going, whoa, that is, like Alex was saying, it is a black mark on our history to do that. They served honorably, or even sometimes they get in trouble, but that's no reason to deny them for what they're due, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you,
I
brother.
know there got to be a way for all of us to help you guys.
There is, bro. There's ways, and like Jenny said before, it depends on each individual case, how that veteran gets home. But there are ways. Right now, we are working really closely, and Jenny can speak a little more about this. With there's a program that's called MV or MVETS program, and President Biden has because he heard our cries and because he did. Promise, we have him on video with a promise to bring us home when he was on campaign. And once he got into office, we did 100 days of raising awareness and advocacy. We've got the Leave No One Behind mural project, and it all came together to a point where now the government is actually looking into this. We don't know how many deported veterans there are still. That's another thing. But yes, please, I think mobilizing locally with the local congressmen or the local representatives is the first thing. The end game would be for us to change the law and to say that no veteran is deportable, that a veteran should be considered a U.S. national at the very least, and having served our country is not deportable. And that's the end game for us, I think. But thank you, brother. Yeah, we need you, man. We need you on this fight. We need everybody to bring us back home. It's going to take us all.
And I will say, for anyone watching right now, there are nonprofit organizations such as Repatriate Our Patriots who advocate and who support veterans who are deported, either for their travel, legal fees, et cetera, et cetera. We are not getting any funding from any government organization to do this work. Neither is ACLU. In some of their programs they have, their work is pro bono. And so their support is greatly appreciated for organizations who are doing this work that not many are really aware of. Anytime I mention this to any U.S. citizen, they are, what do you mean they get deported? What do you mean? So it's not because Americans don't want veterans here, it's because they don't know that it's happening. And that lack of information stems all the way to service members and leaders in the military who are seeing the mission first, right? And abiding by the mission. And then that veteran who is not a citizen really falls to the bottom of their list to be able to put in their application process. So it's not intentional. It's a lot of misinformation and lack of education on the issue that I think, with the help of everyone here and everyone watching, you can help us spread the word on what is going on.
I also want to add something on what you guys are talking about. Since my background is I just came as a local translator from Afghanistan, and as you all are aware of it, that unfortunately, what happened really in Afghanistan, there were like thousands of Afghanistan translators who served for the U.S. Army the last 20 years, and they are forgotten. Their voice was not heard, and they're a big concern of their life. And you might all be aware of this, that most of them are in danger, and they are living in fear. I think they're forgotten right now. That's something that just wanted to bring it up here as well. Although they are not U.S. citizens, they are not here, but they were in process, and the process is very, very slow, and they are, most of them, as far as I know, that I'm in contact, they are hiding, and they don't have a good life.
It sounds like a lot of work needs to be done still. And from what I'm hearing, some of that work can even start maybe for those service members that join the military. So to ensure that they're aware that starting that process of becoming a citizen should happen right away, and to maybe provide some clarifying information in regards to their U.S. citizenship status when they join the military. what work can be done there that maybe can help prevent some of these circumstances where, as Naj was mentioning, others are still left in harm's way, or in Alex's situation, some can be deported and have a difficult time returning back to the United States?
Well, on that, I think one of the answers is really demanding that the military tell people at basic training that, day one, here's the process to naturalize, here's what you need to do to go through the process, and help facilitate that. We have to also remember that people, when they enlist, many of these are young people, 18, 19, they do what their superiors tell them. And unless they're given clear and accurate information about the citizenship process, they're likely not going to know about it. And so I think it is incumbent on the military to make that information accessible in the very beginning, and then to help people through the process during basic training, so that we go back to a place where we have our soldiers coming out of basic training having already been sworn in as U.S. citizens, so that you don't have the problems that Dee and others talked about of being deployed and then still having to go through the process. All of that should be taken care of at basic training. And so I think that is one thing that the viewers tonight can help in the advocacy of. We can get members of Congress to help lift up that ask of the Department of Defense, of the White House, that this needs to be a priority. Because the problem can be solved if we can get our service members naturalized while they're in the service. That would obviously avoid veterans becoming deportable and having the problem that we have now. So I think that's step number one, is getting all of our service members naturalized.
And I will say, step number two, I think that the military needs to identify an office of trained individuals who focus solely on immigration paperwork. Currently, a lot of the law offices within the military, whether it's the Army, the Air Force, or whatever, they don't have immigrant legal advisors that process immigration, right? So they are as well unequipped to support and help those veterans who are with their process of immigration. While the military recruits immigrants and continues to target that population, they should also put the funding into educating and equipping the leadership with the resources to complete that process. Right now, we have a lot of them who are still being deported. 3 have been deported this year alone after the initiative from President Biden. So there needs to be a stop of deportation until we can further process and establish the process for immigration and to prevent deportation. Once they're deported, it's so much harder to bring them back. So putting a stop to deportation until further paperwork or guidelines are outlined, it's a priority.
Wow. Casey, lastly, what would you say to a veteran or a service member who is wanting to become a U.S. citizen? You have about 30 seconds, sir.
Start the paperwork early and follow, like you said. It took, a year and a half from the time I filed for citizenship before the paperwork came through. And then when the paperwork did come through, it wasn't completed. So, but the immigration officer in Hawaii went out of his way to finish everything for me so that I could get my citizenship before I went back to Vietnam. So,
well, thank you. It sounds like start early. Don't take your time, get it done now. Yes. This concludes our panel discussion. Thank you to all of our guests for your service and for being on the show tonight. A little later, we will have a list of resources for those seeking citizenship through service. Now it's time to hear a veteran's voice. This month, Noga Kessler talks with Navy veteran Crystal Kane. But before we leave our live panel, we want to dedicate the show tonight to the memory of Lieutenant Colonel Justin Constantine.
Welcome to A Veteran's Voice. I'm Noga Kessler, Veterans Voices correspondent, and today we have with us Crystal Kane, Navy corpsman. Crystal enlisted in the Navy as a hospital corpsman in 2014 and served until 2019, providing medical care for Marines and sailors during her 5.5 years as corpsman. Crystal earned several medals, including 2 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals, and separated from the Navy as an E4 in 2019. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So why don't we start with maybe you sharing a little bit about what made you decide to join the Navy or to enlist in the military?
My uncles on my father's side were all Marines. And that's originally what I intended to join. I had called the Marine recruiter in my hometown and he didn't call me back. So I called the Navy recruiter and I told him, okay, well, I wanted to join the Marines. I don't really know what I would do in the Navy. What have you got for me? I have no idea. And he said, well, we can make you a corpsman and then you can work with Marines. You can't be one, but you can at least help them. So I said, okay, sign me up.
Maybe you could share a little bit about that, your journey, your experience in the military.
Yeah. So after boot camp, went through 4 months of schooling in San Antonio to become a corpsman. That was really my first medical experience of any kind. Learned very quickly, had to. And then after the Naval Academy, I went to Camp Lejeune, where I spent the rest of my career. Hopped around several different departments, had multiple experiences with a lot of recovering patients that had terminal illnesses, switched over to the emergency department, and then switched to the brig at the very end. That's where I spent my last year. So I was the only female corpsman in an all-male confinement facility. It was a little bit intimidating at first, but within 2 weeks of kind of understanding the difference between working in a hospital and a clinic and then shifting to medical care within a prison, it did become probably one of the funnest assignments that I ever had.
So maybe you could share 1 or 2 of the most challenging and then 1 or 2 of the most enjoyable experiences throughout those 5.5 years.
I was part of a group of what is now the first military operated patient transfer center in the whole country. Being a part of that, of seeing and being able to be like that first face of our Marines and sailors and sometimes soldiers that were coming home, even before they got to see their own family, that was probably one of the most honorable things that I was a part of.
Could you identify maybe 1 or 2 areas of where you got support, or was there a mentor that you had, or anything kind of stand out that kind of helped you through? Or
one person that specifically comes to mind is he just separated this past week. He's going to law school, but Ryan Tyndall, he's got out as an HM1. And all the way from, I would say I met him in 2016, and he was a part of my leadership at that point, and then he switched departments. But from 2016 all the way through the end of my career, and even now, we keep in touch, was always there for me, was the exact example of leadership that I feel like is really rare to find in the military. Just open to learn, open-minded to other people's perspectives. And I took a lot from his leadership examples and have continued to apply that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. And maybe you can share a little bit about the transition. How was the transition for you out of the military?
I had been planning to separate for probably 2 years prior to getting out. And so I every day was working on a new resume, trying to put together a cover letter, really figuring out how to explain myself outside of my Navy experience. And so I feel like I prepared myself probably a little bit more on my own than just with the tools that the Navy provided me, because they really only give you about a week's worth of separation courses towards your last 6 months and kind of just push you down the pipeline, but you don't hear much about the reality of getting out. And I initially moved to Boston when I got out of the Navy to go to school, and that was in late 2019. And then COVID happened, and I felt that I didn't need to be living in a huge city in the middle of a pandemic by myself. So I made the decision to move out to Missoula, Montana, which is where I'm currently located, and have been using my benefits, my education benefits all the way through. I've had a pretty smooth experience with using the GI Bill. And I was also able to get my disability rating established within about 2 months of separating as well.
Well, so now the next question is, what are you planning for the future?
Now I am working on finishing my bachelor's in psychology. I do graduate next spring. And then from there, I plan on getting my master's and becoming a licensed therapist. And my focus hopefully is continuing to serve the military community. I'm not quite sure yet what that would look like clinically, but that's something that I'm very passionate about. Especially with working in the brig for that final year of active duty, I really did see the gaps in mental health care and how that often leads to people being in positions that puts them in the brig. And there's so much more progress that needs to be made within the military community, whether it's people that are already out or still active duty. So that's something that I would really like to stay involved in and continue to add to that goal.
So if there were maybe one or two things that you'd like to share with other young women that are considering going into the military and perhaps in the Navy or Marine Corps, what would those two pieces or a few pieces of advice be?
Join the Air Force instead. Potentially a better quality of life while you're in. It's that branch is just, it's run differently. It's viewed a lot differently amongst the other, like Army, Coast Guard, Navy, Marine Corps. I feel like it's very separate as far as how they treat their service members. So knowing what I know now, I would say look there first. And if there's something that catches your eye, then definitely, look into it. And then choose wisely if you would like alternatives.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for coming and joining us and sharing your story. And we look forward to seeing how your journey continues to move forward. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Here are some resources related to tonight's topic. CalVet Minority and Underrepresented Veterans. Go to calvet.ca.gov and search for Minority Veterans in the Spotlight section. Repatriate Our Patriots helps bring veterans home. Find them at repatriateourpatriots.org. Unified United States Deported Veterans provides support for deported servicemen and women. Learn more at uusdepvets.org. The Vietnam Veterans of Diablo Valley, along with other veterans organizations, are putting on a 4th of July parade in Danville. Find out more at vnvdv.org. The Third Thursday Veterans Group meets at Denny's at 1313 Willow Pass Road in Concord at 11 a.m. the third Thursday of every month. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. American Legion Post 246, honoring the tradition of the American Legion in Danville. If you would like to help sponsor Veterans Voices, you can donate through Veterans Voices, care of Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation. Get in touch with them at diabloveterans.org. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa, so be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air on Monday, July 11th at 7 p.m. We will be talking with submariners. You won't want to miss it. To all of our veterans and their families, thank you for serving. To all of you who tuned in tonight, thanks for watching and have a great evening.